Does everyone have a chance to kind of read over this? I'm sorry. Bloop, 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 bloop.
Did you post it?
Did I post what?
Like link to this reading?
Nope.
Oh.
But I
Like
would.
right now, do we have a chance?
Yeah. Have you have just like, because like I see a lot of you not looking at me when I'm talking. You're like looking at the screen, and that's okay.
I was looking for this.
Oh, I
I
see.
was
Okay.
trying to find the URL, but I was like, that's probably not.
Oh, now you're good. Right. This is basically what we're gonna go over. Right. Looks like a lot more than it is, even though it's a lot. Cool. Basically, again, we're gonna review CRUD. We're gonna map these REST actions to HTTP verbs. We're going to do all the 7 RESTful routes. We're going to do full CRUD functionality inside our application. And then we'll see a little bit more about this params hash that I've seen a lot of you have been working on in labs. Shut up. Cool? I had a student, like I sneezed during lecture, and she was like, shut up. So I do that now, right? If it's offensive to you, I will revert back to the good old God bless you. But for now, I think it's hilarious, right? Awesome. So let's get to it, right? Lecture styles, right? So first thing is, you've all seen kind of the basics of a Sinatra app. I think Mike Chang, the magnificent and powerful himself, has built you the basic Sinatra app and sort of went over like only this like index and show kind of portion of it, but this time we're going to build the whole thing out. And normally what happens in Mod 1, you get this like starter code base. And so as you start to build on something called a framework, there's going to be a lot of files, right? So Sinatra has a lot of files, right? You have some app folder, you have like an app controller, you have some config.ru. I know there's a gem file in there. I don't know what gems are in there. There's a lot that goes inside. And so let's just kind of figure out, right? Does it make sense to memorize how to build this Sinatra app from scratch? Would it make sense to you if it's going to be sort of like this boilerplate, almost exactly the same every single time? No, right? I can probably make some sort of command line application that will build this file for me. How deep did Mike Chang go inside of rake? Like what the rake file is?
There's tasks, so
Cool.
you can put 2 and 2 together, or such that
Okay.
I guess, I see where Rails is going to come in.
All right, so attaboy. So what I'm going to do, and you can tell me if you don't like this style, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause, and I'm literally going to make you finish that statement, because it's very important that you get to use these technical terms in the way that they're meant to be used, right? So like if I'm leading you toward an idea, and then you say a word, even though you have an idea of what it is, you need to be able to tell the whole story, because part of like getting a job, there's something called an interview process. I don't know if you've heard of this, but what it's important is that you can explain these concepts, right? Like if I'm like, hey, how do I do this in Rails? And then you went migrate. The other person, the developer, will be like, okay, what do you mean by that? And you don't want to be put in that position, right? You can simply explain your whole thought process, because they're trying to determine whether or not they want to work with you, right? So if you can explain what you're thinking, how you're approaching something, then it's going to be so much more beneficial for you. Awesome. All right, so rake. Rake is built on a concept called make inside this language called C, and that is it will write Ruby for you. And here's what I mean. Let's build a skeleton Sinatra app. All right, there's a gem called Cornel. So all I'm going to do is put Cornel new. Is that good enough? Oh yeah, please. Sorry. Yeah. Damn. Big plus plus. Cool. So there's this gem called Cornel, and what it will do is it will build out this Sinatra skeleton for me. So what kind of application would you like to build today? An idea is like, I guess for the last class in like October, I built something called Spooky Town. And all it did was like, it just talked about candies, right? Candy was my model. Candy had a bunch of attributes. Then like parties and kids and like anything you want to build. What would you like to build today? Let's be holiday agnostic, you know what I'm saying? Great, Holiday Town, cool. It's not exactly holiday agnostic, but sure, Holiday Town, cool, right? Wow, did you see that? Did you see that? Powerful. So check it out. I know. So, who said scaffold? All right, so all I did was I ran this command called Cornel new, and here you could see it's building for me this config folder, initializers, right? It builds live, the environment file for me. It's got some JavaScript, some images. It builds this controller for me, specifically the app controller, which is great. It has something called views, layout, welcome, my models. It has the MVC in here, right? So what does MVC stand for? Perfect. I heard that very clearly. It's the model view controller, right? Oh, this class is money. It starts this Git file for me. It builds the gem file and the README all in one. Just remember, and this is like a common thing, it builds this app for me inside this structure. So I don't have access to it yet. I will have to cd into Holiday Town. Cool? Now that I'm inside Holiday Town, first thing I want to do is I want to like see what's in there, right? Let's take a look. So having written exactly 0 lines of code, just one command in the terminal, I was able to get, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit here. Is that okay? I have my controllers, my models, my views. I have a config with environment already. This is just setting up the database, right, inside SQLite. Cool? That's all it's doing. It's doing this like fancy require all app. So I have everything inside app, which tells me I have all my controllers, models, and views. Cool? Notice how all these files not only exist, but there's stuff in them already. Right? It can not only create files, but it can write Ruby for me. So rake is very powerful. Right? So inside this lib, my public, these are just like, and you'll get to this like later, right? These are like JavaScript, my images. Inside my spec, I have some tests here, which you all love very much, clearly. My config file, have you seen this before? This is just making sure I ran my migrations, otherwise it'll throw an error. And then it's going to start by running the application controller, because that's going to be my parent controller. And I'll explain what that is here in a second. I have my gem file, bam, all my gems, I know, whoa, right? And then my rake file, which is pretty empty from now. And then this like amazing README. Wow, powerful, powerful. Oops. That was gonna have a better effect than it did, but either way, are there any questions on this sort of like script that will write files for me? And so I never have to remember how to build the Sinatra app. I know that there's like a template that I can follow, that I can use to build. Yes, sir?
You just, when you did the first Holiday Town Cornel new thing, is that in just wherever directory you want to create the Holiday Town
That is correct.
project?
If I want to create a folder called Holiday Town, I just Cornel new inside that folder, and it will build inside that folder a new folder called Holiday Town. I can name it whatever I want, and then that's where my app lives. Yes, sir?
Does Cornel have any other like subcommands? For instance, if you're generating like a controller.
Cornel has a lot of subcommands, and anytime you get something inside your command line, right? If you get CLI tools, right? Has anyone heard of this CLI before? CLI just command line, right? Interface. And that's just this. This is the command line. This is the terminal. So I have something called Cornel in here, and usually I can always put -- help for anything in here. And it should give me a list of all the commands. How do I use this? Right? This is the mod 1 stuff that you learned. I'm building command line applications. So it still has a lot of value from what you learned from mod 1. Cool? I can do the same for Git. Like, hey, what are all my Git commands? Right? Any command line application or anything that takes commands in the terminal, I can always put -- help, and it'll give me all the commands. Cool? Yes.
So are you saying that Cornel is the same as rake, or it just like functions similarly to rake?
Cornel's a gem that will build a Sinatra skeleton for me, right? It's based on this concept that what you learn, I'm making an analogy to rake, where rake can make files and write Ruby for me. It's just a command line application. It's a gem file that will write and build a Sinatra template. Of course. Awesome. So let's start writing this, right? What is Holiday Town in terms of like my models? Like what kind of model do I want to have in here, and what attributes do I want for that model?
Agnostic, so I guess you
Well, Holiday Town, right? That just probably encompasses all the holidays, right? So do you guys want to just build a bunch of holidays, or you just want like some gifts?
food, colors, three holidays and colors. Is that Isaac?
Sure. How about? Great. How about this? I just realized I like trap myself, right? It's like in a mega PC environment. I have to be. It's a little dicey. Oh, that's the problem. Spelling. That's the issue. Cool. How about we do this? How about we just put like a party model, right? Dick, you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I mean, it's not winter holidays now.
Oh, yeah, any holiday. You're right. I was stuck. We do St. Patrick's Day. Great. So, great. So this model, right, would probably be like holiday, right? And each holiday has some sort of name, right? Maybe like the number of days that are celebrated, something like that. And whether or not it's, I don't know, what's a Boolean value for like holiday? Fun? Ooh, actually, no, that's so dicey. You know what, let's just start with like name. Just keep it simple. Right? So I need to make this database, right, that's related to my application. How would I create this database? Okay, just kidding. First thing I want to do is I want to bundle install, all right? I could type the whole thing out, but I'm lazy. Bundle is the equivalent of bundle install. So if I run bundle, it'll install everything for me. You've seen bundle, right? Great. So now I'm bundle installed, and let's take a look at these rake tasks. Cool. If I wanted to create something that can possibly help me map my database, right, with this like ORM, what would I use? What command would I possibly think about or want to use for this? Rake migration. Absolutely. Good job, mysterious stranger. Rake DB, right? Create migration. I believe, actually, if you just put this, it's like one of the best error messages ever. If you just run it blank, it'll say, example usage, rake DB create migration, name, so powerful. Great. So what I can do is just create holiday, right? Does that work?
Yeah.
Cool. And what will this make for me?
It'll do that for you. It's going to generate it with the date tag. It's going to generate that. It will generate the logic. It's going to generate.
Huh? I am going to get, not a schema, not yet. So remember, we want to follow these conventions for a particular reason. Here it says create users. So I want to make sure I'm following these conventions, and I do. What is it? Oh yeah, like this, right? There's no like IES, right? Sorry. Hey, when you start presenting blogs, presenting, coding, and thinking and talking somehow become a horde, right? Cool. Boom. And so what did this make for me? What file did it make for me? Great. In my DB folder, I have a migration folder, and it created this migration for me. Right? For those of you who said that like 001 and all that, that's when you manually create your files in your migrations, and Sinatra's kind of okay with it, but Rails doesn't like that very much, right? So you always want to use the Rails generators or like rake to make these migrations. Cool? And you can tell you see this like timestamp, which is like the version. Great. So how do I do this? Table called holidays. What is it? Do. What is T? Very good. T.name? All right, let me point something out that's like very interesting, right? If I have string here and t dot name, cool. If you remember this do, right, which should always end, this do takes in an optional block, right? This parameter called t. Where have you seen something like this before? Or maybe like you have some array, all right? Dot each do, something like that, and then maybe it takes like a block parameter like x or num, right? And then what this does is it will iterate through each of these with this num block, right? So this t is this table object. It would make more sense that I have something like t.string or t.integer because on this t, I'm calling this method called string. I'm calling this method called integer, right? What I mean by that is, would it make sense that this t block has in its back pocket all the data structures versus any sort of custom parameter name that I could possibly think of, right? Like, let's just say I had like fun, right? Or is this holiday religious, right? Would it make sense that the table block, this table object, would have these methods built on? Or would it make sense that it has like the limited number of data structures that are built on it? Probably the limited number of data structures, right? So if you're ever confused, that's probably the right answer. Cool? Little pro tip from your boy. So t.string, right? And we said that each of these holidays has like a name. And what else? Like probably like days, right? Like certain days last longer than others, right? Like Chinese New Year lasts more than one day, which I realize now you're not all Chinese and probably didn't know that. Yeah? Yes, sir. Oh, you want me to make it bigger? I'm sorry. I was like actually doing coding for once, and it's so much better when I don't have to type at like 180%. Yes, sir.
Maybe like a mascot or something?
How about this? How about we do Boolean, and we'll put mascot. That way we just know if something exists, right? Like obviously Santa is a very particular mascot. Cool? Is everyone cool with this? This lecture is going down a strange rabbit hole, and if I'm not your instructor for Mod 3, it's probably because of this one. Sure. Hero. Cool? Freaking heroes. All right, sweet. So, migration is done, right? What do we need to do now? How would I actually take this migration that I've created and actually, maybe, I don't know, apply it, make my schema? Powerful class. Break DB migrate. Cool? And what does this do for me? It creates the schema, right? Cool. Is this exactly what I want? Yeah, I think it looks good. How can I actually test this? Do I have rake console? Nothing in there for, so I can make it, right? So let's do that. In my rake file, how would I make this? Task, cool. Cool. So here's a very important concept that I want you to understand. Nobody here should be memorizing how to write these things, right? What you're trying to do is jam-pack as much information in your brain as you possibly can, and all it really boils down to is what can this do and how does it work? Because I need to be able to build it myself. I need to be able to manipulate it. I need to do what I want it to do. If I'm focused on memorizing syntax, it's going to take up too much of my brain space to be able to like absorb all this information. So that being said, I can just go bloop, bloop, bloop. I wrote this in like another app.
Yeah, I forget stuff like that.
Dang it. Yeah, I actually remember it, so it's a shame. So I could describe it, right? Like open the console, something like that. Task, I think it's called console, or wherever I want to name it, right? It's just called C because I'm lazy, and you'll get used to it. And what this is going to do, think it's like do, right? And then this is just pry start. Cool. So if I open up my rake, I should see something called rake C, and it should open the console. All right, cool. So task is just what I'm going to call it. All right, describe is when I run the rake T, and it's going to give me a short description of what it does. So if I were to run rake C, I should get it. Cool. What I was going to do is like open up an old folder and like just copy and paste it, but it's fine. So in this pry, how can I test to see if my schema is correct and my database is all hooked up? Yes, sir.
What do you want to create an instance to see? Or you can just, well, we don't have a model, right?
Attaboy. Right? What would I test? What would I write in here? Great. Holiday. Just to see if this model exists inside my database, right? Look. It says uninitialized constant holiday. Okay? So I have my migration, right? And I have my schema, but I do not have my holiday model. So what is this? Oops. Happy holiday. And where's this inherit from? Oh, my favorite, right? Okay. Can't spell. Do I need anything in here? Nah. Cool. So if I were to exit, come back, check holiday, I should see that it exists. So can I do something like holiday.all? And what should I get back? Empty array, because nothing exists yet. So let's make one. Holiday.create. Why create and not like maybe new or something?
It saves to the database at the same time.
Yes. Create is new and save in one. So if I create, what do I have here? I have a nominee. And what are we going to go with first? Please don't.
Boxing Day.
Wow, somebody's international. Boxing Day. Unbelievable. Does anyone know what this is?
No, that doesn't matter.
Sorry, this is America, and we don't understand. How about this? What's like a pretty neutral? Groundhog's Day. Cool, right? And then how many days does Groundhog Day last? Is it one? Are you sure? Are you sure? Technically, it's infinite, right? Groundhog Day. So, what else do we have? Do we have a hero here? Absolutely. That's right. Punks to Tony Phil. What a great movie. Classic. Cool. Because Groundhog Day is forever, right? Now you're getting it, right? So let's just make one more. What's another holiday? Please don't screw me, right? Sure. You guys never watch SpongeBob?
Yes, he knows.
Oh, I'll be surprised if you throw something at me and I don't know, I'll give you a cookie. Great, let's pick a normal holiday, right? Great. Fine, Christmas. Christmas, how many days is this? Right? Everybody knows, technically speaking, after Black Friday, it's Christmas. So it's like 35, right? I'm serious, right? Like, is that 12?
12 days of Christmas.
Yeah, and then there's like a partridge in a pear tree, but too late. Great, let's get out of here. Let's actually start writing some code, cool? You guys are a fun class. So, great. Now, like my model, my database is all hooked up. How can I start my server? Wow, everyone says that so casually, right? So me, I personally have an affinity to firearms. So whenever I like start the server, I'm always like, shotgun, right? But you guys are very casual, right? You guys are like Americans, just like, how do I start my server? Just run shotgun, no big deal. No big deal. Great. So here, let's start something. Let's check this out, right? In application controller, we have something called Sinatra base, right? Have you seen this before yet? Okay, so I'm just gonna very quickly explain what it does for those that maybe are not 100% sure. In public folder, right? I have something called public, and all that's going to do is pull in all of my public folder, right? So my images, JavaScript style sheets. In my views, Sinatra will default inside this controller view. I want to set it specifically to look under app and under views. And so that way, my views, whenever I ERB something, it will point to app views and not app controller. Cool? Yes,
So
sir.
you said it defaults to the controller?
Yeah,
and then use some app.
it'll do something like this,
So
which
do
is,
you have like an RC file, some file that tells it not to go to app/views?
yes, literally right here in configure, I'm telling it in all my views.
Oh, you wrote that?
No, Cornel did.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is what it's telling it, right? Just so I can build this architecture in something that will mimic what Rails will do. And really it's just like to step you up into Rails. Cool? Do you remember when you were building like all the selects and the maps? And then we were like, active record. And you were like, yeah, so this is Sinatra. We'll jump to Rails very soon, right? What does this get to slash do mean? Yes, sir. It's a route, right? This get is an HTTP verb, and this slash is the route. So what does ERB welcome mean? Right, I'm going to look for, in my app view, something called welcome. If I see welcome, I see something called an H2 tag, Sinatra template default. I see like a welcome to Sinatra and a bunch of like other nonsense, right? Cool. Let's take a look. How would I actually go to this page? Well, my main domain, right, is just going to be localhost 9393. This slash just means exactly this. Ready? Whoa, I know. Sorry. Sorry, right? Localhost, okay. 9393 slash. That's it, just slash, right? Because I'm telling the route it's just going to be slash. So I should see this template default, right? Welcome to Sinatra and all this other stuff. Cool? I know it's styled. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Is that better? Right? I know. Look at this. Powerful, powerful. Cool? So, that being said, if I were to do something like get to slash awesome, right, and that does something, what should I render here? If I'm just trying to render a page that says you are awesome. Can I just you are awesome? Yeah, is that okay? So how would I actually hit this route? Powerful class. Slash awesome. And I should see you are awesome. Wow, powerful. Nailed it. Cool. If, however, I were to say ERB, right, and some like rando file, right? Whoa. What is rando file here, and how can I build this?
It's an ERB file that's not been created yet.
Great. It's an ERB file that I have not created yet. So if I do a get to slash awesome, literally tell it, hey, when you get to slash awesome, you will see an ERB file called rando file. If, however, I were to refresh, going to slash awesome, it's going to tell me error at slash awesome. No such file of directory app views rando file.erb, right? So in app views, it's looking for something called rando file. So in my app views, I'm going to build something called rando file.erb. All I'm going to do is put a little h1 and say, you did it! Yay. If I were to refresh, you did it. Nailed it.
Oh, you were going to awesome.
I'm still at awesome, yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to be on the index and you created a random file, it wouldn't throw an error until you try to access that route, right?
Correct. So what I can do is inside this, instead of welcome, I can also make this rando file. So if I were to go to slash, what should I see?
You did it.
You did it. Nailed it.
Sure did.
Cool. Does everyone understand like how this routing works with this ERB templating? This is the biggest part of Sinatra, this MVC idea. Cool. So now, let's just say I have something called Holiday, right? But let's just say I was building a different app, and this app was called Flavor Town for no reason, right? TM. And this app has like hot dogs, it has hamburgers, it has poke for some reason, or it has a lot of these different things. Would it make sense to put all of that logic inside this application controller? No. Where would I want to put the logic and the routing and the ERB for Flavor Town? In its own controller, right? So given that idea, if I have something called like holidays, would it make sense to have my own controller that controls everything for holiday? Otherwise, I would have literally all my logic inside this application controller, right? I want to start extracting some of this logic. So what I want to do is inside controller, I just want to build something called holidays controller. .rb. Cool. Looks like this is generally how we build these controllers, right? Everything pulls, the application controller pulls from Sinatra base. Here, however, I can do class, and this is just going to be the holiday controller. And do I want that pulling from Sinatra base? I do, right? Do I also want some of that sweet, sweet configure logic passed down into my holiday controller? How would I have the holiday controller inherit all of the application controller properties? Magic, right? So now in my holiday controller, I already have public and I have my app view set properly. Does that make sense? I also have a get to /home doing welcome. And I don't want this anymore, right? This is just like a terrible example to get you all up to speed. Actually, I'll just leave it in there. Bloop. Bloop. Cool. So in my holiday controller, right, we learned about, let me get rid of this. I think it's just, cool. So what did we say CRUD was? Bloop, 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 bloop. What is CRUD? We have this create, all right? We have this read. We have something called, uh-oh. How did that happen? That was quite cool, right? We have something called update. And then, right, this is what CRUD stands for, right? Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Embarrassing, embarrassing. Cool. Thank you for that. That was powerful sleuth work. So we talked, and by we, I mean you and like Mike Chang. I was like not here. I was like really mean if you guys talk behind my back. What is read exactly? Okay. So do you remember how I talked about you like shouting things out and like not being like to connect that bridge? So don't get me wrong, keep shouting, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to like shut that down. But what is read, right? You're just accessing data. So there are HTTP verbs that Mike Chang went over. Cool. And what are they? You can shout them out, I'm sorry. What I meant, like, when you said get, right, there was no like connection between read. I was like, what is read? And you're like, get. And I was like, okay. Okay? You got to finish the idea, right? And that is, like, when you read something, you're just accessing data. When you access data, it maps to the HTTP verb of get. That would be, like, the whole sentence. Does that make more sense? I'm going to try to condition you into speaking like that because it will only benefit you. It will behoove you to talk like a developer, right? So we have this get, right? And what is get? It's just accessing data. It's just reading, right? Cool. So this maps to this read. Boop, boop, boop. Do you guys know how to do this? Okay, when you highlight something, you hold Command Control and you can move it up and down. Bloop, 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 right? Cool. What other HTTP verb was there? Post. So what is post? Absolutely. That's exactly correct. When you post, you are sending data to the server. Why would you send data to the server? Yeah, to do a login. That would be it. What else?
She said to persist.
To persist data. That's very good. Right? If I'm sending data in a post request, I'm literally sending data to the server. What can I do with that data? I can save it, right? So post naturally would match up with this create functionality. So far, so good? So, and then what else do we have? We have something called put, and we have something called patch. Does anyone know the difference?
Yes. Put is when it will delete a whole entire instance of a model. So like a row in your table, for instance, I believe. And patch would be a single attribute. So like a column of a specific row.
You're close on the idea, but it's not perfect. But you're very close, right? So put will do is, let's say in your database, right? I'll just, because I need like my hand, so it's like whiter, right? Sorry. All right, so you have like rows in your database, right? You have like name, you have some Boolean value of like hero, then you have days. If I wanted to replace that whole row, I wanted to put all new data inside that row, I'm going to be using a put, right? So if I send a put request, I will always have to include every single attribute, even if not every single one changed. Patch, on the other hand, will only replace part of a row. So if you have like hero, and you have days, and you have name, all I want to do is change the name. I'm just going to patch that row up, just fix that one little thing inside the column, and that's it. So patch will take in one or more parameters that will replace only the parameters that you send. Put will replace the entire row. How often would you say you would use a put or would you use a patch? Specifically by default, right? Let's think about this. You have a user, right? Let's just say you're on Instagram and you want to reset your password. Do you want to send your name, your email, the new password, and all the attributes inside the database for your user? Or do you just want to send the password and you're going to update that row? Just password, right? What else? Like, just think about when you update things. Do you usually update the whole row, or do you just update 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 things inside the database? Does that make sense? So if by default you were to pick put or patch, what would you want the default to be? I'd want the default to be patch, because very likely I'm not updating the whole row every single time, right? So when we talk about update, very often you'll see patch as the default, and that is why. Yes, sir.
So with put, would you have to specify every single parameter? Like every single
Yes.
attribute? Okay.
Cool beans. So we have put and patch, right? If we just talked about this, right? This being this like edit. Which one would I want? Create's already done, read's done. So I have update and delete. What would put go? Cool. Who said delete? Clowns. Clowns. Right? And then lastly we have, if you don't know this one, this lines up, right? I didn't want to say anything mean. Yes, very good. Delate. Cool. All right? These are the HTTP verbs. So the way we build these out is it always becomes verb, then route. So what are the 7 RESTful routes? Do you remember? What are they? Well, let's think about this way, right? We have CRUD. Let's start with read, because that's like the most harmless one, right? You're not really touching the database, you're not really doing it, you're just accessing data, right? We talked about read, and that being what kind of request? So we have a get, right? And what are the routes that just show me information? Well, let me ask you this, right? Holidays. I can have a list of all my holidays, and then I can also display all the details of one holiday, right? If I want all of the holidays, it's something called index, right? And that's displays all of a resource. Cool? And then you have show, which would just be all the deets of a resource. So this would just be, did I spell that wrong? Yep. All right, this would just be like all the information about a particular holiday. All right, I think Mike Chang went over this. So the RESTful route for this, right? I think what you guys did, books or something. Lame. So it's okay. That's like the default lecture, right? So we have a get, right? If you showed you all the books, he did a get to / books. So here, if I want to see all the holidays, I would do a get to happy holidays, right? And what is that going to do? Well, we know it needs to do two things, because what type of file is this? It's the controller, right? And the controller, if you remember, is part of the MVC. So what is the M, what is the V, and what is the C? Right? Model V controller, very good. The model views controller, right? So what does the controller do? Yeah, it controls the logic of the app, right? So it would be best described as the go-between. Did you all read this analogy of how the controller is like this waiter, right? And it kind of goes to the client, it goes to the server, goes to like the back end of the house, and like it kind of does all this. So what we do is the controller talks to the model, and then it sends a response. Right now, we know this response to be ERB, which essentially is like a view, right? An HTML file. Cool? So what I want to show you is there's also this. Did he show you this? Not this one. Nope. Cool, this one. Did he show you this? Okay, I'm just going to go over this really quick because it's important, and then we will have to continue this lecture like later this afternoon because it's going a little bit long, and this room is like taken. All right, I just want to make sure I get through everything. Yeah, Dick, what's up?
I switched that service.
You guys cool with that?
Yeah.
You guys can always talk great about Mike Chang later, right? That's what it's for. Or, you know, I mean, obviously your honest feedback about Mike, but I think Mike is amazing. So here's the deal. A user, right, like this tiny little screen is supposed to be like Chrome or Firefox or something. A user will go to a particular route, like /awesome, /cool, /MBA, right? Wherever the route is, it will check the routes, right? What I mean by that is it will literally go inside, oops, you did it. It will literally do, is there a route to get awesome? Is there a route to get holidays, right? It will match what the user types in. Then it will talk to the controller. The controller will tell it exactly what to do. The first thing the controller does is it talks to the model. Is there information in this model that I need? And then the model will talk to the database. The database sends information back to the model. Then it gives it to the controller. Then the controller with that data will send back this response, right? Right now we know it as an ERB, right? And again, it's the HTML file, that view, and then the view gets sent back to the user. Can everyone follow that? So, that being said, I am inside this get in this model, and I want to display all the holidays. Do I need information from the model to give me all the holidays, right? How would I get all the holidays? Cool, right? And then how can I make sure that holiday.all gets passed into the view? I save it as an instance variable, right? So I can play holidays equals to holiday.all. Now, remember, the controller, So, all at once now. Boop, boop. Bloop, boop. Cool. Bloop, bloop. Bloop. Right? We don't need this. We don't need this. The user will go to /holidays, right? A get request to /holidays. It checks the controller. It talks to the model, right? And the model right here is holiday. It gets holiday.all from the database, spits it back in the controller. The controller makes sure that the view has it, and the way it does that is it creates an instance variable. So now this response, this ERB, this view, is going to be any name, right? Like any name here, right? Here, word, cool, right? Doesn't matter. But what we can do is, if this is the index, the convention is, I'm going to have some sort of index ERB. Cool? So naturally, where would I want to create this index file? The views, right? A little bit of this, a little bit index.erb, cool. So we'll have like an H2 and it'll be like index. Right? Cool. And what does index do? It displays all of these holidays, right? So first I want to display all the holidays, right? I could simply just do @holidays. Interesting. I notice that this doesn't highlight for me, but I know these instance variables normally do. So this ERB is really just short for index.html.erb. Notice how this HTML highlights, right? I can put like a little p tag here, and they'll highlight because this is an HTML file. I want to write, what does this look like? It looked like a Ruby, right? It looked like a Ruby. So I need to make sure inside my HTML, I can interpolate this Ruby. In the same way that I can interpolate Ruby in like a string, the way to do it inside an HTML file is something known as these, I call them ice cream cones, right? Someone said squid, somebody said carrot, you know, yes, just no, right? You can call them anything you want, but it's wrong. I call them ice cream cones, right? I'm like a child. So I want to put it inside here. If I highlight this and I have a Atom package called Rails snippets, I can hit Command-Shift period, boop, and it'll put it inside for me. Powerful, powerful. I know. Here, one more time, just for those that are taking notes. I know. Damn, it's hot. If you hold Command, comma, it'll open up settings, right? Inside settings, you hit install. Here you can look up all the packages you want that make your Atom more powerful. What you want to look up is something called Rails snippets. And then you want to install Rails snippets. I have it installed already, so I'm not going to uninstall. Trash, trash. If you install Rails snippets, make sure to restart your Atom. Otherwise, not all the functionality with Rails snippets will work. Cool? Yes, sir.
Do you have any other like must-have packages that you're implementing?
I will send you stuff offline. Cool? I'll send it to your class. Cool? Otherwise, we could just, the lecture would just be just shortcuts, right? Sweet. So that is a good idea for a blog post. More blogs, right? Sweet. So there's the difference, and the nice thing is that as I Command-Shift period, I can cycle through the 3 ways to interpolate. All right, I have this ice cream cone equals. I have ice cream cone without equals. Oh, okay, interesting. Cool. Equals, without equals, and then some sort of like comment block. This means my Rails, my Ruby, is commented. Cool? Which is a little bit different than when I wrap it inside these p tags. This p tag also needs to be commented. So HTML and Ruby comment separately. So it becomes really tricky to like interpolate and comment out, right? So just be careful about how you're commenting. Yes, sir.
The HTML comment won't work
Correct. If I did something like this, it will try to display my Ruby is commented, even though this p tag is commented out. This p tag won't exist, but my Ruby still will. So it's double commented, right? It's so much easier to be like, you know what, don't even need it. Forget that noise. So I can do @holiday, right? Because we don't need this anymore, right? Do you still need this? You good on this? Okay. Cool beans. Ready? Bloop. All right, so here we go. In my holidays controller, right, I have something called @holidays and holiday.all, right? So what is holiday.all? What kind of data structure is that? It's an array-like object. It is a active record collection proxy. So it's an array-like object. I can probably call array methods on it. So for each of these, I want to do something, and that is the holiday, right? Holy day. Cool. I want to make sure I end. Boop. And all I want to do is display that holiday. Bloop. Just kidding. Bloop. So here's the difference. This equals means it will display on the page. Without it, it will execute silently in the background and will not display inside the browser. So do I want this .each to display? No, I just want the holiday to display. If you remember, this is a what right now? A string, a hash, an array, an object. This is a object and is a instance of holiday because holidays.all will give me an active record collection proxy of holiday objects. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, just kidding. I'm going to get/holiday. That's going to talk to the model and send this response. So how do I see the index of holiday? /holidays, all right? Because the index of the holidays is just get to /holiday. Cool? So, just kidding. It says class application controller, I need something called get holidays. But what I really want is for Sinatra to look inside my holidays controller, right? Like right now it's looking in the wrong place. I could see that. So how can I tell it, how can I configure it to make sure I'm using the holidays controller? Yes, sir. Yeah? Yes, I'm running the application controller, but I want to make sure I'm using the holiday controller. Bloop. Cool. So I see this index, right? Very good. But these like weird hashes come out. These hashes are a representation of just the object itself. Do you remember when you did like object.new and it's like in these brackets, it's like hash and then like a bunch of characters, like where it is in memory? So instead of that, I want the name. Groundhog Day and Christmas. It's the only two holidays I have. Cool? I can always just throw a quick line break in there for some styling, and there we go. Is anyone confused as to where this data came from and how I got it on the page? Yes, sir.
What's the difference between the run and then the use and the
It's something called middleware, and you don't get your first lecture on it until you're in the middle of Mod 5. All that means to say is middleware will intercept the request and then process it with certain things. So for example, right, when I submit my form, I get something called a params hash. Where did that come from? Where is the params hash being built? Is it in anywhere in your code where you say params equals something? So middleware will intercept inside the request response cycle and do things for you. So run and use our middleware just to make sure, like I said, if I don't put this inside my config.ru, it will only know to use the application controller. I have to specify that I'm also using the holiday controller. So it knows to look in all of these controllers for all of these actions. Cool? So middleware, it's a little bit more complicated. If you really want the answer, I'll get with you offline. It's too much of a rabbit hole, yeah.
What if you put use after run?
Use,
Use holiday controller after run application controller.
I'll let you work on that. It's just the middleware, it becomes very complicated. Cool? And the answer is like nothing. So, are you ready? Any questions on how I got the index file to display everything? The model view controller and routing. Any questions on routing and MVC? Great, let's get to show. Whoops, whoop. So in my holidays controller, right? I want to show a particular resource, right? And so if I'm just showing something, I'm just displaying information, what HTTP verb should I be using here? Great. If I want to display a particular holiday, I want to make sure I'm inside the holidays routing. And how would I show a particular holiday? What information about a particular holiday is unique to a holiday, right? Every single thing inside my database has a unique ID. I can drop this delimiter in here and see what's going on. And we will break this delimiter just so you have a better understanding. Cool? So I can drop a binding.pry here, binding.ly, very good. Cool, just so when I hit this route, I'm pausing the pry. Are there any questions? How would I hit this route? Holiday slash what? Any number, right? Because that semicolon ID is a delimiter. It means that it could be like anything it wants, right? If I hit this 2, hopefully I'll hit the route and I'll hit the pry, right? Here I'm hanging, right? So I must be inside my pry. So like I talked about a little bit about middleware, it builds something called params for me. So what are the params right now? It would be a hash, right, with a key of ID pointing to 2, which is where I got in the route. Cool? And some of you have already seen inside the labs that if I were to say, I don't know, ya boy, all right, I'll just change that up, and then I were to go to, I don't know, 7, I should pause the code. Why is it going holidays too? Interesting. Either way, what are params now? What should I see? I should see a hash with a key of ya boy pointing to an ID of 7. Alrighty? So is anyone confused as to where the key comes from and where the value comes from in params? Awesome. Blue? Great. So here we're not going to use your boy because that's ridiculous. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit 2. I'm back in the pry. So if I check my params, it's just a regular hash, right? So if I ask the params for a key of ID, I should get 2. That's the ID I'm going to look for my holiday. So can I do a holiday.find with 2? But I also know 2 is the params at a key of ID. Right? Yes, sir.
Isn't it it's a string with params ID, so how do you pass it into the font?
That's a very good question, right? So the question is, params ID is what? A string 2, right? So I asked you what params are, right? We can always check the class. What do you think you will see? Something called the indifferent hash, right? Sinatra indifferent hash. But what is it indifferent about? Data type, right? I can say, hey, there's a number 2, there's a string 2. It will look for something with an ID of 2. It is indifferent about the data type that you put in. Cool? This is very difficult to build, actually, but it's built for you, right? So I can do that, right? I can just say happy holiday equals to holiday. Oop. Dot find with the params at a key of ID. So now I have holiday. That make sense? So can't I do that exact line of code? Remember, the controller talks to the model and then sends back a view, a response, which we know right now as the view. So in the model, is there something I need when I'm displaying a particular holiday? I need the holiday itself, right? So I can do holiday.find, right? And I'm going to take, remember, this is where the params are coming from. So the params at a key of ID will always find me the holiday I'm looking for. And I need to make sure, as the controller, I can pass that into the view, right? And so I can now ERB, following this RESTful convention of index, what should I name this? Cool? So I need to build what in views? Show, right? Can you imagine now if I'm following this convention of index, right, and show, if I had a different model and I needed the index of that model, what would I name that index file? I'd name it index, right? The problem becomes, if I have two files by the name of index, which one does it go to? Tricky, right? Wouldn't it make sense that inside my controllers, I have something called holidays, and inside my views, I can make a folder called holidays, and then put my index in that folder, right? So if I were to go Shift A, which builds the folder, holidays, right? And then I could take the index and drag it in there. So now I have a holidays index, and if I had another model, right, like, I don't know, party, I would have a party folder, and in the party folder would have its own index. So each individual folder, for each individual controller, for each individual model, can start to separate those concerns. Are there any questions on that? Awesome. So in my holidays controller, this index will no longer work because it's looking for app views index. Can I just do holidays and tell it to go one more level? You see how the highlighting didn't like that? Well, guess what? If I make it an object, it should be good to go. Powerful abstraction, right? Powerful. So, in this show, I probably want inside my holidays, file called show.erb. And right back to my controller, I can just do bloop, holidays, /show. So here, a little H3 action for no reason. Show me the holiday. Cool, right? Like that? Silent AE? Cool. It's like the word Q, right? It's like, this is the most obnoxious word in the English language. It's like Q followed by literally 4 silent letters. Anyways, what do I have inside my show? What do I have access to here? Right? And that, does that HTML? That look like a Ruby, right? So I want to make sure I interpolate properly. So in my holiday, do I have to do .each here? Is that, why would I not .each this? Because it's one object, right? It's not an array. I'm not going to iterate through this. I just have the details of it. So I have a name here, right? I can always do something like name. That's terrible, right? And then I have what? Some hero or something like that. And I want to make sure I drop that Ruby in there. And then, right, how long does this last? All right, at holiday dot days, I think was the schema. Right? Cool. How do I hit this route again? How do I make sure I'm displaying holiday show by hitting this route.
Pass an ID that exists.
Right, I can just simply go to holidays 1. It's going to do params find by. Oh, sorry, I'm in the bride. All right, it's simply going to do this find by with 1. So at holiday is the first holiday, and then it's going to give me all the details. Cool? Are there any questions on just index and show, how I'm passing around instance variables and routing? Let me ask you one question and then I'll give you a break. Do I have access in my show to at holidays? This one. Do I have access to at holidays inside here? No, I do not. All right. What happens in this request stays in this request. Cool? It's very Vegas-like. Are there any questions? Great. Hey, let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then I'll build out the rest of the CRUD for you.
I was watching the audio lab, and it's really cool. You can explain what params were. It's like a whole lot of stuff, and sinatra just does magic and gives you a nice little hash.
Hang out under the
Bloop. All right, so last we left off, we determined that we do not have access to at holidays here because it's only available in the get to / holidays, right? And so what happens in the request stays in the request. So we have completed the index and the show, which map to the R, the read, within the CRUD. And now, the next thing in CRUD, right? So like the R is done, right? Let's do this C. Let's do this create. And so how many requests do you think it takes to create something? 2, right? Why 2, and what are the 2 requests? Get and post, right? So we said get and post. What is get and what is post doing inside this create? Well, first, if you remember, in your amazing command line applications, you asked that user for data. You asked that user for data when you prompted them for something, and then you ran a very cool command called gets.chomp, right? Can you run gets.chomp inside the browser? Now you are looking for user input, right? And typically the way user input is done is through a form, right? So the first thing we need in order to create something is we need to know what we're creating. We need that data from the user about what to create. So the first thing we have to tell the user is, hey, fill out this form. All right. So for example, let's just say you are on a somewhat popular social networking website called Bookface, and they're like, hey, you want to sign up for Bookface? And you're like, absolutely. And then it immediately takes you to your homepage. You'd be like, huh, that's weird. I never put in my name, I never put in my email address, and I never put in my password. How could that have possibly worked? It can't. First, when you create something like a new user or a new holiday, we have to tell the user, fill out this form. I want to know the name, I want to know how many days this holiday has, and sort of whether or not this holiday has a hero. So the first thing is in this get part of create is show, render a form for user input, right? And part of this, we have this, well, cat's out the bag, it's gonna be a get request, cool? And the reason it's a get request is because you're not sending anything to the server right now. You're simply showing a form, right? And that's just reading information. So again, following RESTful routing, I want to make sure I'm inside this like holidays subcategory, and I'm going to be making something called new. Right? This is just the RESTful way. And what that's going to do is it's just going to render a form. So remember, the controller does 2 things, right? Is there anything from the model that I need to put into this form right now? Right? Do I need at holiday, at holidays, something about the holiday right now? Nah, chill. Not right now, right? Chill. Chill with that, right? So nothing from model for the form. Cool? And so here, all I'm going to do is render, just like, okay, let's do this, the new action. Just like in index and show, what should I call this? The new, right? So in my holidays, right, this becomes very patterny. So just be careful not to pattern match, but be purposeful as to why you're writing this code. Cool? So in this new, I'm simply going to put a H2 and be like, make a new holiday. Yes, you can. Powerful. Caps. Cool? So Atom has a bunch of cool things, right? I showed you Rails snippets. Right? Powerful. If you do equals tab, it'll do that for you. That comes without Rails snippets, just out of the box. Minus tab will do without showing. And then you just have to like add the comment, sorry. Cool? In the same way that I can do H1 tab and it'll build the H1 element for me, I want to build what inside this new ERB. I want to build a form. Can I have the power? Amazing, amazing. Class is used for styling. That was weird. Class is used for styling, all right? So I'm just going to get rid of it for now. Cool? And in this form, we have something called method, and we have something called action. The method, right, cat's out the bag, it's a post, right? A form will always default to post because that's what it makes sense to do. A form should be submitting data. So it should be a post. Cool? This action, though, this action, however, should be, oops, all right, action will always point to the route or path, right? So if this is the route or path, where do I want to post to? /holidays, right? I could do a post to /holidays new, but that's a bit redundant. I can just post to /holidays because I'm going to make a new holiday. So do I have here a post to /holidays? No. Let me build it, right? So part of this, right? And now we're talking about the, what action is this? If this is the new, right, and it renders a form, what is the second part of the RESTful route for this new, right? Remember when I did this particular active record method that does new and save? Now I'm actually going to take the data from the form and create something. All right, so the second half of this will be the post. I'm sorry, this is the create. All right, following this like create with the get and post, this is the create portion. And so this will just be, again, a post to /holidays, because that's exactly where I'm telling this to go, right here. Bloop. All right, so I'm just going to drop a binding, just bloop, just to test it, right? Can I submit this form right now?
Does it automatically submit for default? Like, or do you need to have an amendment that submits?
Well, this form is literally just a form, right?
There would be nothing that's submitted.
There's nothing inside this form. I need inputs from the user. So input, naturally. Look. So this one is submit. And the value for this will be submit that form. Good answer. What is this name here? And what is this value? What does this mean? So name is what comes across as the key in params. And the value is what's already pre-filled in the form. So when you submit it, this is the actual value of the form. Here, what we really want, instead of a value, is like a placeholder, right? And it's just simply going to say, type in a name, please. Cool. Yeah? So this would be like a name for an input, and this will already be a submit. So let's take a look at how this works. The first thing I'm trying to do is a get to /new. Can I hit this from the URL? Can I hit this post holidays from here? Whenever I go to this URL, it will always be 100% of the time, always and forever, be a GET request. I can never post from the URL. I can never patch or delete. I can only request information. Cool? So it will be a GET. I need to get to holidays/new. What it will do is it will go through this code, and it will see in the holidays controller, is there a get to /holidays new? No. Get to /holidays new. What will happen right here when it hits it? It will think new is an ID. Does that make sense? Because of this delimiter. I could have put anything in here. Do you remember? So it thinks holidays/new is some sort of show route. If that's the case, it's going to hit this. It's going to do holiday.find, and what are params ID in this case? This is going to interpolate into new as a string. And is there a holiday with an ID of new? No. So the error that should come up will be active record not found, could not find holiday with an ID of new. So naturally, I have to hack it, right? And get kind of grimy with it. It will read top to bottom. So if I want this new to hit before ID, I can simply go, right? And so it will stop at new first. And now I see this powerful form. Powerful, right? Name, and you see this like grayed out stuff? If I click it, it's a placeholder. So I just replace it. If I had a value in there, it would be a hard-coded value to start. And I don't want that. I'd rather a placeholder. Cool? And then submit that form, because that's exactly what I have inside my value. Cool? So if I were to do that, it's a post to /holidays. When I submit, what should I hit? The post to /holidays, right? I should hit this actual post to /holidays and immediately be paused inside this binding. So let's take a look at this name. Ready? Holiday name. Right? If I hit submit that form, I'm going to pause. I'm inside the binding, right? And what would I see in my params?
Our ID, where your key is the
Key in params, holiday name. So where is holiday name coming from? Whatever I actually submit in the form. That's the value in my params. But where did this key in params come from? I put the name of key in params. So what do I actually want this name to be? I want it to be, yes, name will work, but name and name become tricky in this weird pattern matchy kind of way. The way I would phrase this is the key in the params. And so I want to line this up with the attributes of my model, right? I happen to have a name, right? And this is like days, and this is whether or not you have a hero. This is not a text, this is like a number field. And hero, I think, is just a Boolean. No, you can use like a checkbox. We're not gonna worry about that right now. I'll just hard code it to text. I want you to get this concept first, right? So this is an attribute called days, and this is an attribute called hero. And here's what I mean. Oop, I'm in the binding. Yeah. Cool. Oops. Let's change these like placeholders to word. And so if I were to put value in here, right? I can hard code this to true and see what comes up. See how this is like actually there, whereas this is not. These are just placeholders.
Can you change the true?
I can change it if I want to. But it's a value that is already existing. So value and placeholder are different. Does anyone see the difference? Sweet. So here's a name for a holiday. I don't know, Thanksgiving. That's pretty neutral. And that's like minimum 4 days, right? Like always Thursday through Sunday. Hero, clearly, right? Tommy the turkey? You know what? If that's a real thing, I owe you a cookie, because I've heard of that. If I were to hit submit this form, what will happen? I'll hit the post to /holidays. I can always open, have you seen the Chrome DevTools yet?
Yeah.
All right, so you can always either right click and hit inspect or Command Option J. So here, I can use this thing, and when I click it, I can select any element on my page. So if I were to click maybe the form, this form will take me post to /holidays. Cool? So if I submit that form, I know I'm going to hit a post to /holidays, which will take me to this binding, which will take me to this binding right here in my terminal. If I check params, I should see 3 things, right? Based on what I named, the attribute name is going to come up as my keys and my params, and the value is whatever I submitted. So I have name, days, and hero all lining up to name, days, and hero as my keys in my params, and then the value is actually what I submitted. So could I do something like holiday.new with params? Well, there's no ID because I put new,
Yeah,
right?
Same. Right.
Could I just do, who's seen the underscore yet? Cool. Boom. So if I were to go holiday, that last, I should see 4 days of Thanksgiving, true, ID of 3. Right? Using that mass assignment based on how I've named the keys within my params because of the name attribute inside my input. So, quick summary. In order to create something, I first have to render a form, take the data from the form, and then simply, right, do holiday.create with the params. Yeah, I could do that. Then what happens right after this post? The the program will do exactly what you tell it, and that is, cool boss, job's done, I created, and it will stop. It will literally render an empty page because you did not tell it to render anything, right? Because computers are very smart and extremely specific. So I can either ERB, right, and render some page like, congratulations, you made this thing, or I can redirect to a particular route. Can I redirect to this route? I want to, right after I create it, hit that show page for it. So if I were to do something like this, right? What is this ID though? Well, let's think. I want to pass this into the view, right? In order to pass it into the view, I must have something like @holiday. And so here, this is just the ID. I can go bloop. Powerful. All right, let's see. Let's take a look at what happens. Oh, I'm still in the binding. Bloop. So I can go, see, it rendered nothing, like a champ. But if I were to go back to new, and I were to make a new holiday, like, I don't know, the Kit Kat holiday, and it's 10 days of Kit Kat, and there's obviously a hero, right? The Kit Cario. And then if I submit that form, it should make it and then redirect me right to the show page for the KitKat. Cool? Are there any questions on this sort of like new and create being two different requests and how to make that work? All right, we're coming up on an hour 25. You guys look like I'm hurting. Me. You have the option, right? Do you want me to go through edit, update, and delete? It's really not that bad, but it's really entirely up to you as a class. Or do you want to push that till tomorrow? Who says let's go? And who's like, yo, I'm done, dog. I'm done for right now. You can be done. It's okay. It's an hour and a half. All right, yo, listen. I'm hurting, right? Me, personally. Let's put the onus and blame on me. We're going to go full crud. All right? We're going to go a lot faster tomorrow since I don't have to explain the inner workings of everything. And then you'll just slow me down tomorrow. Cool? So that's really about it in terms of just index and show, and then that new and create. So we've finished 4 out of 7 RESTful routes using 2 of the HTTP verbs, get and post. All right, matching up to 2 of the CRUD verbs, right, create and read. We have not done update or delete. Are there any questions on what I just said? Yes, sir.
I have a question about that, the redirect. Can you show that?
But of course. So I'm hitting a redirect, and I'm telling it to go to /holidays with this specific ID. This ID, when I create it, right? When I create something in a database, it automatically has an ID. So if I create it and it becomes ID 4, right? Then this will be holidays/4 as it's going to get interpolated. And that will redirect to this particular show page, right? Show page. Once it does this, it'll go right into get holidays. It'll find the holiday because it now exists in the database, right? This is 4. This is 4. Holiday.find4 gives me a specific holiday. Now in my show, I go to show, and it'll give me that holiday name, hero, and days. Cool? Awesome. Great. That's all I have for you today.